This past summer, I had the amazing opportunity to spend 5 weeks in France as part of a short-term exchange program sponsored by Rotary. Rotary is an international organization devoted to serving others and building global understanding and peace. I spent 10 months of preparation and 7 hours flying overseas to get to France. And when I got there, I could hardly believe I was actually there. I spent my time there with my exchange sister Lise and her father Jean-Marie, and I met many others along the way. Throughout my exchange, I learned many lessons and grew in a lot of ways, but there were 3 main lessons I learned that really changed how I see the world. First, I learned about the importance of trying new things. 1 week into my exchange, I headed up to the beach along the English Channel with Jean-Marie. There, we met up with his friends and participated in a sport that was born in France, longe côte, meaning along the coast. We walked through the water along the coast in full-body wetsuits with the water level just below our ribs. When Jean-Marie first described it to me, I didn't think it sounded like much fun, but it ended up being one of my favorite experiences of the entire exchange. I came away feeling excited and hoping that I could someday participate in longe côte again. I spent the last 2 weeks of my exchange in a beach city named Bagnols-sur-Mer, which is located at the very southernmost part of France, only about 15 minutes from the Spanish border. But one thing in particular that was a completely foreign experience to me was the opportunity I had to take a week-long windsurfing class with Lise. Growing up in the Midwest, I didn't go to the beach a lot. I'd been boating at the lake a couple of times, but that was about all the experience with water sports I'd had. I couldn't even barely swim. And my lack of experience definitely showed. There were 6 students in the class, including me, ranging from about 10 years old to 40, and I was by far the worst. It definitely didn't help that I was the only non-native French speaker, so while the instructor was pretty good at English, he sometimes struggled to explain things the same way he could to the other students. But mostly, I was just not built for the water. I struggled to stay up on my board, and when I was up, I groaned in frustration as I couldn't get the board to go where I wanted it to. At the beginning, I really hated it, and I dreaded going to class because it meant 2 hours of struggling and flailing for everyone to see. But by the end, my perception had changed to a more positive one. Despite all the struggle and embarrassment, I really enjoyed the experience, and I learned a lot. I came away from it covered in bruises and burns, but I also determined that if I put more work into it, it could be something I could really enjoy doing. Second, I learned exactly what it feels like to be a foreigner in a country whose native language is not your own. This was one of the more difficult lessons I had to learn. I discovered that communication is super important to building relationships, and there were many times that my inability to express myself through language became very frustrating and isolating. More importantly, this lesson taught me what I can do to show empathy and love to foreigners in the United States who might be going through similar struggles. There was one person in particular who taught me how to show this empathy. This person was Lisa's mother, Christelle. She always did her best to include me, and she had no problem speaking slowly and clearly, or finding other ways to get her message across when I didn't understand, and this really helped me feel less like a foreigner. Third, I learned that while culture and language may differ, people are essentially the same wherever you go. No matter what country you visit, people are still just people, trying to be their best selves and loving the people around them. In spending a weekend with much of Lisa's extended family, I got the chance to meet many of her cousins. One cousin, Lilian, was an 8-year-old boy, just a year younger than my brother back home. I loved watching Lilian demonstrate so many characteristics similar to my brother and other little boys. He loved Pikachu, Skylanders, and soccer. When we went to an amusement park, Park Asterix, he loved all the rides, but was frightened of a loud booming voice at one of the picture spots. But my favorite experience with him was in the car coming home from an afternoon in the park. Throughout the ride, Lilian rattled off question after question. He went on like this for a good 15-20 minutes before his mother finally exclaimed something along the lines of, "Lilian, pouvons-nous passer 5 minutes sans poser de questions?" In English, can we go 5 minutes without asking a question? Though cultures may vary slightly, it doesn't matter where in the world you go. Fatigued mothers are still fatigued mothers. Talkative teenage girls are still talkative teenage girls. And rambunctious little boys are still rambunctious little boys. I learned countless lessons through this amazing experience, each with at least a dozen stories that built them. However, I think these 3 lessons were most important and vital to my character growth. If everyone could truly understand these 3 things, we would all be more appreciative of one another. We would become more united as a global community, embracing our differences instead of fighting because of them. We would be able to look past our regional and cultural separations and see all others as fellow brothers and sisters. We would be able to see them as fellow children of God.